Now to moderate the discussion, he is the president and principal consultant of Pineda Cybersecurity, an IT consulting firm that provides cybersecurity and data privacy services, mostly for SMEs. He held various cybersecurity roles, both technical and managerial, in different companies such as BNext and Graham Micro, the Coca-Cola Company, Silver Sky, and JG Summit Holdings Incorporated. He also teaches cybersecurity courses in a number of universities, both for undergraduate and graduate levels. Some certifications he holds include Certified Information Systems Security Professional, Certified Information Security Manager, and Certified Ethical Hacker. He finished his Master in Information Systems from Asia Pacific College and BS Computer Science from De La Salle University, Manila. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome on the cyber stage, Mr. Justin David Pineda.
Yeah. Hi, Diane. Hi, everyone.
Hi to you, Sir Justin.
Yeah, good afternoon, and good afternoon to our panelists for today, and to our viewers. I see we have a lot of viewers for this afternoon. Yeah.
And they are all excited, looking forward to the second panel discussion that you will facilitate. The experiential journey and challenges in the metaverse. Maybe, Justin, you can give us an overview about this before we call our panelists.
Yeah, Metaverse is actually a hypothetical iteration of the internet as a single, universal, and immersive virtual world that is facilitated by the use of virtual reality and augmented reality. And we've seen and heard about how big companies such as Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and even Epic Games have started investing in Metaverse. So for today's discussion, we explore more about the future of the Metaverse, how organizations can adapt to it, as well as how it can be regulated and secured. I heard some of the speakers touch a little bit about it. So we'll explore more about it in today's panel discussion. Yeah, so there you go.
Discussion to start. All right, Justin, let me call on now the panelists for this second panel discussion. Mr. Kiat Hiong of Rubric, Mr. Ian Farquhar of Gigamon, and Mr. John Martin Encina of Maya. And joining us this afternoon is no other than the mind behind the Metaverse Forum, the forum chairman himself and ISOG's VP, Mr. Chito Jacinto.
Yep. Hi everyone. Hi Chito. Hi Ian. Yeah, hi Kiat and hi.
Hi everyone.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Hi Brian. Hi Justin.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me here.
Good afternoon, everyone.
All right. Yeah, so maybe we can start. I think we have started a little bit early, so we have more time to discuss some of the key questions here. Yeah, so let me start with the first, like a Miss Universe question. The way you foresee Metaverse. So how will the Metaverse unfold and transform enterprises in general first? So let's start with that, and then later we can go to more security and more strategic discussion. So anybody would like to go first? How will the Metaverse unfold and transform enterprises? Ian, would you like to start?
Oh, I get to go first. I actually think it'll be very interesting to observe. I think the initial deployment of the Metaverse will be as a social networking add-on. And we've already seen this largely. We've seen Second Life. I even worked at Cisco when Second Life was really hot, and I was told to get on Second Life, which was really bizarre. But I think as organizations, as businesses, we will then, as we've done in all other social networks, start to engage with customers via the Metaverse. So we will get situations where organizations will have presences in the Metaverse and be dealing with customers and so forth. And that's how they will exploit it. How they actually do that, that's going to be really interesting to observe. And I'm not sure I could predict that.
Okay. How about John? In the local setting, how do you think Metaverse will unfold? Do you think it's something fast or gradual, or do you think people here in the Philippines would even accept it?
Sure. So it seems it seems that there's right now there's really a niche of people in the metaverse locally, right? Because even if uh, even if we are pretty much already, even if Filipinos are pretty much always on their phones, we're pretty much always connected to the internet. We're not yet at that. I don't see yet that we are at that level where we're really going virtual reality. I think we're gonna have to face issues about bandwidth, about the power of the devices that most people have, but then what's interesting is that even a lot there was a study that was one that was made. I really can't quote it. I can't quote it right now, but it was interesting because most Filipinos spend their time on the internet in social media. So I think that's going to be the main driver for adoption, right? The wanting to connect with other people, always having that necessity to be engaged in social media. I think that will be one of the drivers of adopting the metaverse here, and also considering, of course, that we're an archipelago, right? And I think one of the best use cases of the metaverse here is education, because as I mentioned in my talk, right, it will be interesting to actually reach a lot more students. If you're an educational institution, you want to reach students, you want to promote your educational program, and I think the metaverse will be one of the venues where you will be able to make that happen. Also, imagining that a lot of Filipinos are actually interested to become, for example, seamen, right? They want, and I had an interesting discussion with one educational institution where they literally recreated a sea vessel virtually, and they delivered the education through VR. It's interesting because they were able to actually make students graduate 4 courses during COVID, while everyone was locked down. The education was still going on because they had that kind of technology, and they actually delved into the metaverse where the instructors are actually in that virtual reality world. The students are your co-students are with you, you know and you don't need to get the people inside that vessel, right? If we're an archipelago, we can that company can be in Cebu and reach as far as Holo, reach as far as any island out there in the Philippines, right? As long as there's internet. But again, I think that will be one of the key drivers too. We want to make sure that we have enough connectivity. The quality of our internet will be good because obviously the frame rate requirements of going into the metaverse will be high. So that will be one of the another interesting area where we can look at.
Yeah, thanks, John. Actually, that's good. Use it for education and social media, things that we're good at, or our strengths in the Philippines. How about Chito? You've been in the banking industry for for a significant amount of time. How do you foresee financial institutions adapt to the metaverse? Do you think they would delve into it right away, or we're still on the conservative side? How do you foresee it as a security leader?
Okay, first and foremost, I'd like to comment on the panel discussion earlier. I think the panelists may have unwittingly divulged their passwords when they shared the idea of what their handles are. But that's just me talking. But anyway, as going back to your question specifically, I think financial institutions may be interested at this point in actually delving into the metaverse. However, that will depend largely upon the regulatory body, which is BSP, as to whether they will be able to get the approvals. Because at this point in time, we need to protect our people. Sorry, but you mentioned that we'll focus on security later on. But I cannot help but mention that we are very particular, or at least the industry is very particular about securing not only the bank's information, but also the information that has been entrusted to them by their clients. And that is also what has been mandated by the BSP. So that will, I mean, they will definitely go into it, but I'm not too sure, and I'm not too, I believe they're not too keen on doing that immediately until such time that the technology has been stabilized, and that, well, first and foremost, they have the approval of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Chito, for that. Regulating bodies. So yep. Yeah. How about Kiat? How do you think on the side of the solutions, the technology solutions? How do you think will these organizations, technology solutions, will adapt to the metaverse? Do you think that the technologies that we have now are capable of handling the metaverse, or you think that there will be there's still an evolution that we have to wait for?
Yeah, I mean, my first thought of it, I pretty much share the same view as Ian and Jen as well. To me, the first thought of metaverse is really a social media 2.0, right? And from an enterprise business perspective, it really empower the speed to business, right? Speed to getting into go to the market and having a better reach into the community there, identifying the right users, the right domain, the right market segments, because there's a huge amount of data, right, that you can mine and that provides to you across different platforms. So seriously, I'm not sure how how the data is being shared across different platforms so far today, which I believe there is still gap there to be able to provide that kind of it could be due to security constraint in a security technology, but of course certainly there will be a lot of concern on security, as it not only providing a organization with more creativity and reach to the market, but at the same time trying to think about how you can have layers of security in place to have more secure access to the users data and so on, right?
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So let's move to the awareness now about the metaverse awareness of consumers. So in a recent survey, just this April, in the United States, only 16% know what metaverse is. So how long do you think? And again, in the introduction, we've seen a lot of companies investing millions of dollars to it. How long do you think will it take before metaverse picks among the consumers? Ian, would you like to?
Okay. Well, I think one of the things is, of course, it's not really here yet in any functional way. We have to ask a question about what are you going to have to access the metaverse? What sort of system are you going to have? Is this something that most people would have the resources to be able to do? We're talking, VR headsets. These are not common devices. I mean, even with something like the PlayStation VR, which I can't reach mine, but most people don't have them. I have one, but most people don't. Are you going to need a VR headset? How are they going to set that up? Is there going to be some other mechanism like Google Glasses or something? What sort of computing resources, what sort of network connection are you going to need? These are all valid questions because they will talk to exactly how many people can experience this when it's actually here. And this is something that interests me a lot. I haven't seen any realistic timings on that. And particularly for the Philippines, with Yuran Archipelago, as was stated before, Connectivity is an issue, bandwidth, all those sorts of questions. How much bandwidth will it require? Until these questions are answered, I don't expect to see a lot of it picking up. Now, I do expect to see a lot of journalists talking about it, as we are, because it's interesting. But timetable yet to be determined. That would be my answer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And other insights from the local point of view. Yeah, I think, but yeah, because hardware is another issue. So those who have access to it, so that's and the infrastructure. Yeah, and we've seen how comparing it with social networking sites, right? It peaked a little bit early and fast, and we were able to predict how exponential it would grow. But how about in the Philippines, Chito or John? Any?
Yeah, if I may. Okay. On my end, it all depends. I first and foremost, I tend to agree with what Ian has actually stated. That it all depends on the hardware, it all depends on the systems, it all depends on the availability of the tools that are needed to, to gain access to the metaverse. However, given the fact that the Filipinos are so gung-ho about new things, the consumers will not really hesitate to actually delve into it as soon as it's made available. If all it takes is a regular computer, if all it takes is a regular hand phone or a regular smartphone for that matter, then you can expect that the Filipinos will actually adopt to the use of the metaverse or to accessing the metaverse immediately. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's still dependent primarily on what Ian has said in terms of availability of the technology from both the hardware and the software component.
I really want to step back a little bit, right? We've been talking about the means of delivering metaverse, like bandwidth, the technology, hardware. I think we're going to have to look at the metaverse from a product management standpoint, right? I think the most fundamental question that will drive whether the metaverse is here to stay or not is what problem does it solve, right? Because I think if we're able to answer that question, we will be able to understand and predict better how metaverse will go into the future. Because as with any other product, it sticks when if it solves a very particular problem, if it's able to cater to a need by its users. Because if the users demand it, then companies will actually invest money on it because they have something to gain. Companies will start lobbying with government. They will talk to the telecommunications companies. The entire business ecosystem will make this happen as long as we are able to really create a need for it. So what's the need for the metaverse, right? It's really about taking the internet experience into an altogether new level. So who is fond of doing that? Maybe we should really be asking those questions. Who's very interested to elevate their internet experience? Probably the younger generation, but the problem is the younger generation probably won't have the buying power to get all of these gadgets to really go and experience the metaverse in the future, right? So I think we're gonna have to wait for a few more years for this, unless we are able to really develop very good use cases, very good justification on why we need the metaverse, right? I agree with one of the comments in the chat box, right? That it really started with gaming. I think that's where it will really grow. But for it to really stick, for it to really hit significant mass, for it to drive investments, I think there's gonna be a much bigger use case than gaming.
Yes.
Yep. Thanks, John. Yeah, actually, to react to Chito, yeah, in one of the news locally, it says that Filipinos in their basic needs they would save some money just for the load and the data, so they can access the they can access internet and access Facebook and all other social networking sites. And to add to Jan, no, apart from the games, I think the pandemic really hyped up the promotion and the need for the metaverse. So a lot of the organizations, big organizations, use that to kind of set the mood for the employees, because they're meeting virtually. At least using the VR and AR, they are able to see and meet, and as if they're in the same room. So my next question would be about the challenges. So what challenges do you think will businesses face when the metaverse is already reachable to consumers?
Mhm.
Ian again.
I've actually got a perfect answer here. And we know it, and the challenge will be monetization. Because we went there before. We went there with Second Life. Second Life was like a early version of the metaverse. Lots of companies rushed there. Lots of companies invested a lot of money. Very, very few companies actually saw a significant return despite that massive investment. Now, I think we'll have learned that message, and I think there will be new forms of commerce that will appear in the metaverse, just like there was with Second Life, where people made millions of dollars selling avatars and props and all sorts of things that were imported in there. But how will we monetize this? Now, I think the companies that will be providing the various metaverses we will see understand this well, because they have an understanding of history. But how will you as a company, if you're a bank, and banks, we were talking about this before, you've got to still operate in a regulated environment, and having dealt with banks for many, many years, regulation changes much, much more slowly than business. You will be challenged to actually get in there. You might want to get in there, but the regulation and your compliance regimes will not follow quickly. It might be a challenge to make money or do anything more than PR or marketing in there. If you are a small, nimble company that isn't encumbered by massive regulation, you might be able to make quite a bit of money very, very quickly. But I think the big players who have huge budgets, will be the ones who will struggle, and it'll be the small players that will actually get the benefit, because they'll be much more agile and bring less baggage to their metaverse environment.
Okay. Yeah. You want to add to that, Chito? Any challenges you think that businesses would face?
Well, I tend to agree with what Ian said. In particular, how they convert interest in the metaverse, or say, for example, the participation of users in the metaverse into income. That's the most critical aspect of the expansion, or the stabilization of the metaverse. At this point, the one thing that I can actually probably relate it to are the what we now encounter as digital banks. They've actually shifted from the regular, more or less, brick and mortar branches brick and mortar operations, and have actually started out going, well, as the term implies, purely digital. But then again, there's still something that they can move on to, but that will depend on whether it will be worth it for them eventually. I guess that is more of the challenge than anything. Eventually, I don't see the regulatory issues from BSP as something that would actually prevent it from happening, but it is something that will, make them see, do a reality check, I suppose, as I would like to say it. It will actually require these banks, digital or otherwise, to take a pause and then do a reality check. Is this something that will be worthwhile? And then, is this something that we can actually secure in terms of operations? I guess that's what challenges. Those are the challenges that would actually face the banking industry. But from an institutional perspective, you're right. It all depends. It's easier for other industries to actually enter into the metaverse, provided they immediately see a means of recovering whatever investments they have made.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Chito. So I think this highlights more on the monetization and the shift from brick and mortar to the digital a digital version. Okay, so let's now move to the security threats. So what security threats do you think will be the highlight in the metaverse? Kiat, would you like to share your insights?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the of course, data security is at the heart of my business from a unique business perspective. Sorry, there's a lot of background noise over there. Yeah, and it seems like metaverse itself, right, is multi-layers beyond what we do, which is the last line of defense, of course, even beyond the data center. But at the heart of whatever that's empowering metaverse, there's definitely data, right, which is the crown jewel. And from that data perspective, right, it's important for us to provide absolute data security to secure your consumers' data, to secure your business, to ensure there's a proper cybersecurity and cyber resilience. And of course, we have seen the shift from a cybersecurity into a cyber resilience one. That's one aspect of it. And another aspect of it, as I mentioned earlier, I think it has become also a new attack vector, right? So it expanded more surface area for adversaries to be able to exploit and steal credential and to so-called the impersonate, all right, and to be able to execute across the kill chain and eventually get to your crown jewel. So those are the key things from a security point of view. And of course, whatever the adversaries is after is definitely your data, right? So trying to get into your crown jewel into your data centers environments, trying to get those data pertaining to your consumers, pertaining to the users, and so on. And that's really at the heart of our business, and trying to help customers to really protect, secure, and to be able to recover the data. So that's my point of view from a security point of view, that is helping customers to really build a zero trust data security, right, at the core of the data, at the core of the business.
Okay, thank you, Kiat. John, would you like to add some more? What security threats that you think? Do you think the common social engineering attacks that are happening right now in social networking, do you think will it be applicable, or do you think it will be worst in the metaverse? And if there are new ones that you can think of.
Of course. I mean, I don't want to really overthink this. The security threats that are present right now in the internet will all be applicable to the metaverse, where it be social engineering, 0 days, on all of these security threats. They will all be present. Especially social engineering. Especially social engineering, actually, because if you think about it, let's say you have you own NFT in the metaverse, right? And someone wants to get their hands on your NFT. Social engineering is just one of the ways where they can actually gain access to your account. So let's take into account gaming. Let's not even go to NFTs yet. Gaming. There are a lot of games out there where you actually have to pay real money for you to get the latest weapons, the latest cool stuff that's attached to your avatar, to your character. Now, what others will try to do is, if they don't want to invest that kind of money that you just did, they will just try to take over your account, do a social engineering on you, make you drop those items and then someone else will pick it up. So yeah, social engineering threats will definitely be present here. But then I guess what I really wanted to talk about is I think what's unique in going into the metaverse in terms of security is that also something that I mentioned in my talk, right? That when security solutions right now protect the cloud environment, they protect your mobile applications. They protect your attack surface as a company, maybe even even mobile phones, right? But the metaverse is actually beyond that, right? We should be talking about IoT security. We should be talking about expanding our attack surface. I think those are very important issues that we need to consider when we talk about the metaverse, because IoT devices are meant for for a specific purpose, right? These can be cameras, these can be VR headsets, these can be gaming consoles, and honestly, security will not be at the top of line whenever you are designing these products, right? Because they weren't meant to connect to other users. But now with the metaverse, there are possibilities where one is experiencing the metaverse using a laptop, and another is using it through a mobile phone and through a VR headset, through a gaming console, right? So interconnecting all of these devices means that that at the back end, the APIs that are making all of these things happen will all have to be secured, and they will have to cater to the unique security threats that are present in these IoTs. So that's why it's very important, IoTs. So that's why it's very important to I think have a very good secure development practice. We have to really consider making DevSecOps as something as very fundamental to all companies, especially those that are in the IoT business, that especially those that are moving into the metaverse. We can't really waterfall security testing anymore. We need to make sure that every single piece of code in there really gets tested, really goes through quality assurance, and all of these tests will have to be automated, because given the ratio of people developing technologies, putting up infrastructure with security people, I mean, that's crazy. That's a very crazy ratio, right? Security will always be the bottleneck. So one of the practices actually that we did in Maya was to not make security as the bottleneck, but then rather teach the developers, teach our infrastructure people to actually do the first level scans themselves, so that security can just do validation and governance and make sure that this is an automated process, right? That and make sure that we are getting help. We are getting help from artificial intelligence and machine learning, because we really cannot fight all of these cyber threats, especially in the metaverse, if we're going to be very bureaucratic in our security mindset. We'll have to empower everyone. We'll have to make sure that we're all on the same page, and even the top management needs to be in. You need to make sure that security is part of the product feature, rather than just thinking about security at the end, when the threats are already attacking us, right?
Mhm.
Yep, thank you, John. Yeah, very very interesting points on IoT security, and yeah, how you think about it, whether you think about security first when designing it, or yeah, again, for most businesses actually, you talk about the profit and how you get revenue out of it. I think we're good for one more question. I actually have lots of questions, but we're running out of time. One of the common denominator question here would be, um, who do you think should manage Metaverse? And so there's a second part there. And what do you think this policymakers should do to ensure a positive future for Metaverse? Um, Anyone would like to um, would like to share their inputs about it? Ian, go ahead.
Why not? So I kind of responded in the Q&A about this already, but I think there's a choice here. And I can say this as an outsider because I'm not in the Philippines, I'm in Australia. And both the Philippines and Australia both have the same thing. We can either, as legal and sovereign nations, choose to have our own laws and cultures that we apply to the cyberspace environment, or we can have another country's laws applied to us. And to me, that's a no-brainer. We want to reflect our own culture, our own societies, and have our own laws respected. So my advice would be to any country looking at this, irrespective of who they are, legislate early, engage, make sure that you move earlier rather than have to mop it up later and clean up the mess that you have inherited because you didn't move early enough. And these would be things like make sure that the Metaverse organization that is providing it, the social media company or whomever, has local representation. So if your law enforcement needs to deal with an issue, there is someone local to call. And, little things like that. But if you legislate and get in early, you can make sure that happens. If you do it later, it's going to be much, much harder.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think just a follow-up for our local panelists, Chito. Do you think that the DICT and NPC, these government agencies are enough to take a look and have oversight over Metaverse, or do you think that there should be another agency that would manage or look at how, because it's going to be a different quote unquote world, a virtual world. So yeah.
Okay, I like the question. In fact, it's something that's been bothering me for the longest time. I don't think we can really leave management or administration of the metaverse purely to the government. I mean, it affects us all, but the government may not be sufficient, may not have enough exposure, may not have enough manpower, and may not have enough, capability to actually keep track and keep tabs and, make sure that they actually control what's happening in the metaverse, because that is precisely what we don't want to happen. If the government controls what's in the metaverse, then there comes the question of freedom of speech, freedom of information, and freedom of everything. So there has to be a role played by the users, played by the private sector, and it's not limited to purely the DICT or whoever else in the government. I am not saying DICT is not in a position to do this. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I am not saying that the DICT may not have the capability, but I don't think it will be enough considering the limitations that have been set upon it by law as to what they can do. Because the law cannot actually move in fast enough and revise itself to actually keep up with the metaverse or with the changes in technology. So everything becomes, reactive instead of being proactive. That's my stand on it. I am not questioning the capabilities of the DICT. I am questioning the law that actually gives it the power.
Thank you, Chito, for that for that answer. Yeah, I think that shared responsibility model is the key. For it to work properly and securely. Yeah. How about John? Any last words about the policy making and how should it be governed?
I think we'll have to look at the uses of the metaverse in order to understand the applicable governance frameworks here, right? So I think right now how we are regulating social media will kind of be the same in how we regulate the metaverse, because that's the primary use case right now, right? But then there are expansions already, so we'll have to be aware. The government will have to be aware of how companies, how users are using the metaverse in order to put in the proper regulation, and as Ian mentioned, come in early. That's very important because you know, there will be implications in the ways that people live their lives in the metaverse, depending on what regulations there are for. So if the use case is cryptocurrency, financial institutions, you know, the BSP has already come in to actually look at how digital banks, how financial institutions like us are actually engaging in this business model, and and what kind of regulation should be put in. If the metaverse is already being used for education, then probably the questions from our education regulators, like is that an acceptable ways of teaching? Can I actually make someone graduate from a metaverse university? So I think those questions will have to be answered. But then I think awareness of its use it will be very important, and that's why we will have to really communicate. The public sector and the private sector will always have to communicate, so that there will be smoother use cases, and there will be smoother experiences for the users.
Great. Thank you. Interesting points, John. Yeah, thank you for the insights. So we still have so many questions, but we have so little time, and it looks like we're at the top of the hour. Yeah, we would like to thank Chito, Ian, John, and Kiat for sharing your key insights about Metaverse. Some of the questions are addressed to you, so if you still have time to answer them, yeah, you can do so. So thank you for sharing your key insights about Metaverse and its impact to organizations, IT, the government, and to the society as a whole. So we hope the audience was able to find new and informative ideas about Metaverse after this short panel discussion. Thank you, everyone. Back to you, Diane. And thank you to the panelists.
And thanks to you as well, Mr. Justin David Pineda. Thank you for handling that very well, that panel discussion. And of course, thank you to our panelists for your exceptional insights about the experiential journey and challenges in the metaverse. We indeed learned a lot from that discussion. All right, friends, that is what we call traversing cyberspace. And at this point, we are going to end our panel discussion session. For those of you, as what have been mentioned a while ago by Sir Justin, if your answers, or if your questions rather, were not answered, we will get back to you separately and address each of your questions. You can also email us at isogcybersec@gmail.com and follow, please, our social media sites, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and our website, isog-org.ph.